Well, it's just turned 2022, so what better time to talk about the best films of 2019? 2019 was an excellent year for cinema. A year where we comfortably sat in cinemas with no idea of the horrors that were just around the corner. There were so many good films in 2019 that it was very hard to get it down to a top 10, but I did because I don't want to talk too long. But anyway, some other films I really love include Little Women, Avengers Endgame, Midsommar, The Assistant, The Sound of Metal, The Lighthouse, and loads more, and plenty that I haven't seen, so please do include your favourite films down below. Anyway, let's get on with the list. In at number 10, Jojo Rabbit. Taika Waititi is certainly one of the great comedy directors working today. From his wonderful New Zealand films Hunt for the Wilderpeople and What We Do in the Shadows, to his work in the MCU with Thor Ragnarok, he has a unique tone which is both cute and strangely macabre. He works well with kids and dark material, so a film about the Hitler Youth was right up his alley. Roman Griffith Davis gives a great performance as a German boy who wants nothing more than to be a good Nazi, and Waititi is having a ball as Hitler, the boy's imaginary friend. You need to be a really great comic to pull off the topic of the Nazis, such as Mel Brooks, and Waititi pulls it off, with a great cast, great jokes, and sentimentality that doesn't get too mawkish, but does manage to pull an emotional punch. In at number 9, Toy Story 4. When I heard they were doing a fourth Toy Story film, my heart sank, as number 3 finished the story perfectly. Well, I should have had more faith in Pixar. This fourth and hopefully final Toy Story film focuses on what happens to someone when they feel their life no longer has meaning. Woody is the star here, and he's desperate to have purpose after no longer being an essential toy to his new kid. He tries to look after her new favourite homemade toy, who keeps trying to throw himself in the trash. But when Woody is reunited with Bo Peep, the film takes on a surprisingly romantic angle. How they make you believe in love between two toys is Pixar magic. This is one of their best looking films, with some really beautiful lighting, and like with so many of their works, it has powerful emotional moments that really tug on one's heartstrings. It may be all zeros and ones, with a massive evil company behind it, but they do manage to make something truly moving on screen. In at number 8, The Kingmaker. Lauren Greenfield's excellent documentary about Imelda Marcos. When you're dealing with a megalomaniac monster such as this, it's better to not just openly judge them, but give them enough rope to hang themselves. And this documentary gives Imelda plenty. Marcos is both riveting to watch and utterly deplorable. We are given insight into her world and into the recent history of the Philippines, and how she has been hidden behind the scenes pulling strings. Well, not very hidden at all. For the last 60 years, she's been controlling and manipulating people in order to keep her family powerful. It shows the rise of her and her husband, Ferdinand Marcos, to power, their brutal reign, and their eventual defeat and flee from the country. Everything is clearly shown with interviews with those that were affected by their atrocities. What's terrifying in the documentary is how Imelda has tried to brush this all under the rug and get her son into political office. It's frightening, funny, and a brilliantly made documentary about an eccentric figure who remains fascinating. A few years ago I spent Christmas in Manila, and I spent the most awful hungover taxi ride to the Imelda Marcos Shoe Museum. I don't know why. And number 7, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Possibly Tarantino's most fun movie. When it was announced that he was making a film about Sharon Tate and Charles Manson, I was really worried. I was terrified with what he might do. But much like Inglourious Basterds, Tarantino doesn't seem to be held back by history, or what actually happened. What we get here is one of the great hangout movies. Spending time with Leonardo DiCaprio's washed-up alcoholic actor and his stuntman, played with cool perfection by Brad Pitt, is a real treat. Watching a dog being fed, watching them watch TV, to watching someone making ridiculously huge whiskey sours is tremendous fun. Both leads are excellent, and my favourite scene in the picture involves DiCaprio desperately struggling with a hangover while meeting a director. The scene at Manson's camp has unbearable tension and shows just how in control Tarantino can be. Of course, he isn't a particularly controlled director. His films go wherever he wants them to. Jumps in time, scenes with absolutely no relevance to the plot, but what is clear is Tarantino's love of the city and the city in this period of time. He really brings to life the atmosphere of the late 1960s Los Angeles. And of course, the soundtrack is amazing. The violent ending is bizarrely hilarious, and then with the final shot, it's surprisingly moving and affecting. It's all over the place, but it's undeniably a really fun cinematic experience. In at number 6, The Irishman. Age has certainly changed Scorsese's approach to the gangster picture. In his previous mob classics, there is an energy and tacky glamour to the proceedings, showing the audience what enticed these men to the life of crime. But The Irishman is a more somber picture. A film about aging and about how choices we make when we're younger affect our relationships with those we care about. Robert De Niro plays real-life hitman Frank Sheeran. It stars and ends with him alone in an old folks' home, and in the middle we get to see his life unfold. His decisions, his friendships, and his murders. This sounds like familiar territory for Scorsese. Gangsters, De Niro, and even Joe Pesci and Harvey Keitel turning up. The gang's all here, but these are now men in their 70s. The film has a different energy. It might also be why it's 4 hours long. The film eventually involves the mystery surrounding the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, played by Al Pacino, in a surprisingly toned down performance for Shouty Al. Slightly turned down.
To his fucking fathers! To his fucking fathers! Locals! Damn it!
Scorsese has always been a master at portraying violence on screen, but this might be his best. It's as brutal as it usually is, but here it's worryingly quick, showing just how fragile life is. There was a lot of talk at the time of the CGI de-aging of the actors. Indeed, before it came out, I was pretty worried, wondering if they'd be able to successfully show De Niro from a 20-something to an old man. But eventually the CGI did manage to age him from a man in his 80s to a man sort of looking in his late 60s. It doesn't really work, mainly because of their bodies. Their bodies are the shape and size of men in their 70s. They don't move like young people. When people call Robert De Niro kid, it's almost laughable.
What's the problem, kid?
And I really don't know what's up with Joe Pesci's mouth. It looks like everything else is real and his mouth is from a video game. But that aside, the performances are tremendous, and you're completely invested from minute 1 all the way up to a minute 120, then you get a little bit tired for about 10-20 minutes, but the final hour and a half you're right back in it again. Scorsese proved he is still one of the great directors, and that he can bring something new to a genre that he had already perfected. In at number 5, The Personal History of David Copperfield. I love Armando Iannucci, and here he takes the Dickens classic and tells it with real humour and tremendous amount of warmth. I watched this towards the beginning of the first lockdown in the pandemic, and it was just what I needed to see. There is so much life and energy to the picture. Dev Patel is perfectly charming as Copperfield, and the supporting cast is excellent, including Peter Capaldi, Tilda Swinton, Ben Whishaw, Benedict Wong, and Hugh Laurie. Iannucci uses colourblind casting brilliantly. It's not showing off, saying it's ahead of the times or really important and look at us. It's simply casting brilliant actors and showing us that this is a human story that we can all relate to. It's visually arresting and has imagination pouring out of it. It also showed that Iannucci could direct a film that wasn't full of profanity. Although I did miss the swearing a little.
He loves Sal Jolson.
The governor!
Mammy.
You take the piss out of Jolson again, and I will remove your iPod from its tiny nano sheath and push it up your cock. And then I'll plug some speakers up your arse and put it on shuffle with my fucking fist. I tell you, and every time I hear something that I don't like, which will be every time that something comes on, I will skip to the next track by crushing your balls.
In at number 4, The Farewell. A really touching, somewhat miserable but very funny film. Lulu Wang's film, based on her own experiences, is simultaneously very focused on Chinese culture and totally universal. It's about life, love and loss. Awkwafina is fantastic in the lead as a Chinese American struggling to make ends meet in New York. She finds out that her grandmother is dying, but the family won't tell the grandmother and will keep it a secret from her. Apparently a custom in China. They are going to hold a fake wedding for her grandson so the family can get together and see her one last time and let her enjoy her remaining time on Earth. Awkwafina is not invited as they feel she cannot contain her emotions and go along with the ruse. But she comes along anyway. It mostly plays out as a dark comedy, but one with a lot of love at its centre. Awkwafina portrays the uncertainty and bemusement with wit and warmth. The supporting cast is excellent, and all have unique characters that are well-rounded and performed. It's incredibly hard to make a film that can make you cry and laugh in equal measure, and Lulu Wang achieves that here with this incredibly personal film. In at number 3, Parasite. I can't believe it took 92 years for a non-English speaking film to win Best Picture at the Oscars. No, of course I can believe that, it's the Oscars. Bong Joon-ho directs a film that is stylish, funny and scary. One full of twists and turns, but also one that manages to be about something and deal with genuine issues facing the world and society as a whole. It's about the have and have-nots. We follow two families, one struggling to make ends meet, living in a small basement apartment, and a wealthy one living in an idyllic house. The members of the poor family, one by one, find jobs working for the rich family, lying about their skills and who they are. They become parasites to the rich, while the rich are using them to do tasks that they themselves are capable of doing in an equally parasitic relationship. This is already a great tale, but it gets more and more complicated and twisted. It's devilishly funny and totally unpredictable. The cinematography and set design make it sumptuous to look at, and the score accompanies the beautiful images perfectly. Economic inequality has always been an issue, and the disparity between the wealthy and the poor is ever increasing. Dealing with this subject often leads to fiction that is depressing and a struggle to get through. Bong takes this incredibly important issue and makes his point at the same time as creating something uniquely discomforting and enjoyable. It's a hell of a ride and definitely deserves its Oscar. Here's to the Academy looking further afield for their best picture choices in the future. But don't hold your breath, it's the Oscars. They got it wrong from the very first Oscars and they're gonna keep getting it wrong. It's the Oscars.
A lovely bunch of coconuts. There they are, standing in a row.
But you said goodbye to Grumpy and Sleepy, left the dwarves behind, came to town to stay.
In at number 2, Marriage Story. Divorce is something Noah Baumbach clearly knows a lot about. He dealt with his parents' divorce in his 2005 film The Squid and the Whale, and here he deals with his own to Jennifer Jason Leigh. It pulls no punches. It's a heartbreaking film that, yes, is about divorce, but has love at its core, not hate. That said, the hate and anger that pour out of Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson is astonishing. They are both brilliant in it as a married couple going through an increasingly bitter separation. You can see the inspiration that Kramer vs. Kramer had on Baumbach, even down to the New York-based husband and California-based wife, a theme that was also used in Woody Allen's Annie Hall. In all three films, New York represents rich culture, but also insecurity and an inability to change, while California represents freedom and positivity while being a bit tacky. Unlike Kramer vs. Kramer though, this is a film that's much more balanced in its portrayal of the two characters. We see it from both their perspectives. Both have a clear case and both have clear flaws. It shows that nobody and nothing is simple. The lawyers, played by Laura Dern and Ray Liotta, are two of the greatest villains in recent cinema. Totally believable and totally reprehensible. But as I said, love is at its centre, and that is where the pain for both main characters comes from. It also has some interesting song numbers, with a few diegetical musical sequences. My favourite being Adam Driver singing Sondheim's Being Alive. While not being a perfect singer, he sings it with such emotion that it gets the meaning of the song across better than most stage productions of the musical it comes from.
Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive, being alive.
And in at number 1, Pain and Glory. Pedro Almodovar's film about a director struggling with a deteriorating body and state of mind is equally tragic, funny, and uplifting. Antonio Banderas gives the best performance of his career as the director. His back is killing him. He has constant migraines and often struggles to swallow. It's all so depressing, but it's also done in a kind of humorous way. Banderas makes the pain and tiredness of it all so relatable. You feel like you're him as he goes through this. The physical and mental pain has stopped the character from working, but after the re-release of one of his classic films, he begins to reminisce about his past, about his relationship with actors, lovers, and most importantly, his mother. Well, it is an Almodovar film. We get to know Banderas' character inside and out. The non-linear storytelling is handled expertly and even has a little twist of its own. As Banderas begins to smoke opium to deal with his pain, it is yet again handled with humour, but also shows the desperation of it all. He is a deeply depressed man, but as the film progresses, we see the moments from his past that inspired him, the moments he felt alive, and we hope that he can recapture those feelings. It has a brilliant supporting cast, with Penelope Cruz giving one hell of a performance as his struggling mother. The film is full of Almodovar's usual themes and his usual vibrant colour palette. It's a beautiful thing to watch. A film about life, regrets, and pain. But not just pain. Pain and glory. It's a wonderful film and my personal favourite film of 2019. Right, counting down my top 10. In at number 10, Jojo Rabbit. In at number 9, Toy Story 4. In at number 8, The Kingmaker. In at number 7, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In at number 6, The Irishman. In at number 5, The Personal History of David Copperfield. In at number 4, The Farewell. In at number 3, Parasite. In at number 2, Marriage Story. And in at number 1, Pain and Glory. Well, those are my top 10 films of 2019. What are your top 10 films of 2019? And here's to 2022. May it be better than the last 2 fucking years.